Creator, this is your daughter, Titania, and I'm here with your other children to do this reading for the highest and greatest benefit of all of us and of anyone whose life we touch and of anyone who will hear this recording later at a future time. We set our intentions. I set my intention to be a clear channel for the information that everyone on this call and anyone who listens to it in the future will hear, most needs to hear right now, and to provide that to you in a manner that you will easily and effortlessly hear, understand, and integrate for your highest and greatest benefit and the benefit of anyone whose life you touch. I'd like to invite my higher self and the higher selves of all the participants, both now and in the future, to be present to facilitate this exchange and ensure that it happens in the highest and best way possible for the highest and greatest good of all concerned. I'd also like to invite an overriding angel of communication to facilitate this exchange and ensure that it happens in the highest and best way possible for all who are here now and listening in the future. I invite the four archangels to come and hold the four directions around us, creating a sacred space of light, of love, of wisdom, of healing, of discernment, of empowerment, of anything that is in all of our hearts and minds at this time, that we have answers to these things that are loving, kind, supportive, and encouraging. I invite Raphael to hold the east, Michael to hold the south, Gabriel to hold the west, Uriel to hold the north. I thank you, archangels, for coming to hold the four directions around us, creating this sacred space for our well-being and our continued growth and learning. We set the tone for ease, for love, for light, for healing, for all that is highest and best, all that is in our hearts and minds, and anything that does not match these frequencies is welcome to go now. Okay. So the first spread here, the intention, we're looking to understand, to grasp, to get our heads around this idea of resilience in this time. What is it that we most need to know about resilience in this time of strangeness? Okay, so starting with the recent past, this situation leading into where we are now, influence is waning, but it continues into our present and into our future. So we're looking at resilience, and this is the card of indecision. It's sitting in the recent past, and so you see the woman is standing there. She's very still, but there's a lot of coming at her all at once, and she's uncertain about how to proceed. So I think this very clearly describes what so many of us are experiencing, this idea of what do we need to do? What do we do? How do we do it? There's this concern and a lack of clarity, a lack of direction forward, a lack of any of feeling like there is clear, concrete action that we can take. And when we feel like that, it's always really helpful and important to remember that it may not be the time to make the decision. If you're not clear, it's best to just pause. It's best to just relax and take it easy, to rest and trust that you will know when to take action at the most appropriate time. It'll be clear when that time comes. You will know what you need to do. So again, this sort of sense that collectively there's this experience in our recent past of what is this? What are we doing? I mean, we're all in a new place here. The narrative of what was normal is gone, and we're between stories right now, and it's left us in a position of uncertainty, of discomfort, and dis-ease as well, because we're just so unfamiliar with this experience of being adrift as we are. The present card. It's the card of craftsmanship. And this is our present card. This is the energy of the present time regarding resilience. And this card is lovely. It has to do with slowly and carefully building. So even though we are unplugged from all that is normal and typical in our experience, this is an opportunity for each of us as individuals to connect with who we are at our core and those things that we value and those things that are important to us, and give ourselves permission to give those energy, to grow them. So this is a great time to complete some projects that you may have sitting on your shelf and have been there for a long time, or just get clear that that's no longer important, or to take the time to learn about something that's important to you. You know, and so many people I know are starting gardens or growing gardens. And so that would be one example of craftsmanship, this idea of preparing the beds, organizing the seeds, getting a plan for what's going to be growing this season, and implementing that plan. So this quality of energy is in our present, and this is truly resilient for us right now, is not to focus so much on the stories that are going on in the outside world, but to come back to ourselves, to come back to our world, to come back to what we know, what's true here and now in our present moment, and to apply ourselves to what is in front of us right now, and to give ourselves permission to develop those gifts or those aptitudes or those interests that are there, but maybe have never had the time and space to be developed. So we have an opportunity. Some of us are still working, some of us are still contributing in the larger world. And even to those of you who are, I would still encourage you to do something to craft your own life, to craft your own vision, to craft your own experience. You know, again, people are baking bread. That's a craftsmanship process. You know, there's somebody I know who's been experimenting with sourdough, a lot of people actually, but this one person in particular, it's sort of this methodical growth experience. And again, that's craftsmanship. That's applying yourself right here, right now, to developing a skill, developing a way of being. And this will increase your resilience in the face of this adversity, because right here, right now is what we know. What we're getting through the media, for all we know, there's so much out there, so many different aspects, so many different perspectives, so much information, some of it contradictory. It's hard to know what if any of it is really true or real or helpful for us as an individual at this time. And I'm not saying to unplug completely, because I know it's important to sort of keep abreast of things, but maybe dial it back a little bit. Give yourself permission to step away from those external narratives and find your own wisdom, your own inner voice, your own inner guidance, your own inner teacher, and start resting a little bit more in your here and now, in your immediate life, and your relationship with those who are around you right now. Okay, in the near future. This card of competition is the name of this card. You see you have these two individuals. They look like kings. They've got fancy things on their head, and they're facing off with each other. The Suit of Wands is all about creativity, inspiration, and passion. And I think what this is telling us is in the near future, we're moving into a time when this resilience that we're building right now, or this groundedness, this centeredness, will serve us in the future. Because I think there is going to be, again, there's all these different narratives, all these different stories, all these different authorities trying to tell us what is what. And it isn't always consistent or coherent, and some of it even if it isn't even really logical when we check in with ourselves. It just doesn't make sense. And so there's going to be some of this energy in our near future. And that's why I'm coming back to this idea of craftsmanship in the now, learning to anchor yourself here in the now, so that even in the future, when these things, situations, information, things coming up where it causes some kind of conflict or competition, there's a clarity that you have, a groundedness in what you value, what you know, what is precious, what is important. Those core values, you know, because we are a collective, we are collective humanity, we share these things. And it's going to be very important going forward, especially expressing this to our leadership about what is important to us, what is it that we want from them in terms of their leadership and taking us in new directions. And it's going to be important to be grounded and wise and centered so that we don't get ruffled when things may be going on that seem strange. Now, does this make sense to everybody? Does anybody have any questions or want to jump in at this point or ask anything? So I'm just going to unmute you all. Does anyone want to add anything, or shall we get on to other questions you might have?
I would actually like more clarity on the third card, if you wouldn't mind.
Not at all. What do we need to know about this future card? Competition. So we've turned over the Fool, which is a major arcana. So the Fool is the very first card of the major arcana. And when you have major arcana cards show up in a reading, they're pay attention cards. And the Fool is all about the start of the journey. You know, you think about that feeling you get when you wake up on the first day of your holidays, or as a kid when school was finished and you just had that summer stretching in front of you. It's that quality of energy. And it's also about being in wonder, being in awe, staying in a place of grace. The Fool is very much about grace. In some decks, you see him almost like he looks like he's about to walk off a cliff. It's very much this place of innocence, of openness, of trusting, of engaging with the world from that place of wonder, from that place of enthusiasm. It's the beginning of a journey. And so this is sitting on top of this card of competition and conflict. This sort of, the sense that I'm getting with this card, it's sort of an adversity. It's sort of like a butting heads. It's sort of like different opinions. And I don't know that I'm getting that it's like a full-on conflagration or anything, you know, major sort of thing. But there's definitely this sense of different camps, of different perspectives, vying for position, trying to get as many people to think the way they want them to think. Which is why if we can stay in this state of grace, if we can trust that we are exactly where we need to be, doing what we need to be doing, and giving our energy to the solutions rather than to the problems, that's what the quality of the Fool card is about. This is about, and craftsmanship, these two cards here. This is about being, you know, again, here and now. And staying focused on being solution-based, on projecting what we want to create in our lives. You know, where attention goes, energy flows. So if we're giving our energy, our precious life force to this conflict, to this competition, to this competition for our ideas, this competition for our minds and our hearts, then we're not present in our own world. We're not present to those around us. And this is where we need to have our energy right now. It's not to say that we've, you know, again, this idea of what's going on the world stage. There's a lot of drama out there. There's a lot of energy pulling us one way or the other, trying to get us to invest our life force somewhere along the spectrum. And what's most important for us right now is to be present in our life right now, being in a state of appreciation and gratitude for the lives that we have, the blessings that we have, and staying open to more, staying open to seeing what's going on in our experience, staying present with those we love, and bringing life and joy into our relationships right here and now. Do you find that helpful, Janet? Is that?
Yeah, and I got a hit too of the idea of healthy competition, right? That
Nice.
we need, it breeds innovation, right? And that just to see a positive twist on the idea of competition too. Totally.
But yeah. I mean, yeah, I love that. Thank you. Because it is, humans are incredibly resilient, and truth be told, a competition or a challenge often pushes us to be even more innovative.
Yes.
Because then we're in a container with others and we're all pushing for the same thing. And so by that perspective, we're collectively pooling our energy and directing it in a particular way. The other thing I wanted to say is again, as I said, I really appreciate your slant on this one, because it's important to remember that everything that we're experiencing is contributing to our greater unfoldment. So even if things don't seem to be going quite the way we want them to go, it's important to remember that it's these situations that we find ourselves, these opportunities, these conflicts, this competition, whatever it is, it lights up what we do want. We get clearer because of the contrast about what we do want. And it's important to go with what we do want. We want to move in the direction of more light, more love, more peace, more well-being for everybody. And so when we discern that something isn't quite the way we want it, then we need to turn back to life and flow our energy in the direction that we want it to go in, not to shout no against something, but move in the direction always of the solution. That's great, Janet. Thank you.
Thank you.
So does that feel complete with everybody for that first spread?
Going out, Todd.
Okay, so I'm going to move on then to the next spread. Now, does anyone want to offer up a question or something that they want to explore? Okay. Then another suggestion that I'm going to make is that we can do 2 cards for each of you. That would indicate we can have 1 card for maybe where you're stopped and 1 card for what would be supportive going forward. Would that be interesting to you guys? Oh, Lacey has a question. I'm sorry. Please go ahead, Lacey.
It's okay. Sorry about that. We have a lot going on in the kitchen here, so I'm muting and unmuting on and off and on and off. But,
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you doing that.
I was just wondering what the cards think for the aftermath of this pandemic. Because when I think about it, I think it's a little bit too good to be true that the world will turn for the better. I almost think that we're not necessarily ready, but if this event were to happen again, I think then things would turn better. You know, it's kind of
a
nihilistic view on what's
right.
going on. But I'm wondering, yeah, just what the cards are thinking. Maybe things will just turn for the better, just like that.
So you want to get a sense of what we need to know about the direction that things are heading in?
Yeah, for sure. Like, just, you know, what's going on. Like a nice little, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's start with just...
What's it going to look like after this? Yeah.
Okay. So let's pull a card on just what do we need to know about this direction? Because I think it's really important for us to remember that this is a co-creative experience that we're in the midst of for all of humanity. And so this is lighting up all kinds of stuff for us personally and collectively. And I don't think the outcome is set in stone. I don't think we know where it's going. As I said, I think there are a lot of different groups and agendas who are wanting to steer it in a particular way. But I think we have choice right now. I think that's the most important and exciting thing, is where we stand. This is a place of possibility. And so that idea of that craftsmanship, or what are we crafting in our moment for our future? And it starts with us individually. Because if we're living kinder, wiser, more grounded, and appropriate lives, that is how that will influence our collective path going forward. So it's just important, I think, to keep in mind that nothing is done yet. We're still in the process of crafting this, and so it's up to us to really be intentional and be in the driver's seat in terms of our own experience, and as a result of what we're crafting personally, recognizing that that's going to play out collectively as well. So here, I'm going to pull a card though for what we need to know about the direction that we're moving in, because as I said, I do feel like this is still in play. So what we need to know right now about this collective direction. So we have the Ace of Pentacles. This is the very first card of the material earth suit. And pentacles have to do with material well-being, often has to do with money, stuff, you know. But another really great image that I love is this idea that the oak tree grows out of an acorn, and the aces are like acorns. They're sort of that beginning kernel of potential life force that can grow into a huge oak tree, solid and majestic. So this is the energy that this card that we're pulling on what we need to know about the energy of this situation and where we're going and again, it's this seed of possibility. And it's not to say we're not going to have our bumps, but the more we can stay out of the fear and the more we can stay present and intentional, the more we can craft a future that we collectively want to create. Because let's not kid ourselves. People, all of us, let's face it, we've been longing for something different. We've been longing for something more. We've been longing for the world our hearts tell us is possible. And so that momentum is behind everything that's going on right now. And it's not to say that there aren't interests who are trying to hijack the process and make it profitable for themselves, because that's what so many of them do. Okay, I'm gonna. But it's important for us to realize that we're being carried on a wave right now, a tremendous wave of energy that stems from our desire for something more. So materially, yes, things are going to be dramatically different. This is a new start on that level. And it's important to stay conscious in it all, to stay in our higher aspect of ourselves, to stay loving, to stay kind, to stay intentional, to stay connected with each other, connected with the planet. You know, whatever language or tools or resources that you have to help you stay present and to help you stay in that space of love and kindness and mutual support is what you're being called to do right now. Because that is collectively what we're adding to our future, if that's what we're living. So again, you know, I don't feel that this is a done deal. I feel we're in the process of crafting it. And so what are you crafting in your day-to-day life? How are you being inside yourself? How are you being inside your heart? Are you finding places where you can be peaceful, where you can be loving, where you can be appreciative, and allowing yourself to have that expression of that? Okay, so does that help, Lacey? Does that answer what you were looking for, or do you need more? Okay.
There we go.
Yeah, I thought that was wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Titania.
No, it's my pleasure. I mean, we can delve further into it, but the sense that I'm getting is that what's really important for us right now is to be aware that we are the ones influencing the direction that it's going in. So the most important thing is not to succumb to fear, but to find ways of being resilient and staying in our present moment, staying in appreciation for what is beautiful, what is working. And always, always when the contrast comes up, to keep pointing our boats in the direction of what is wanted rather than turning and giving our attention to what isn't wanted, because that's when we fall in the hole. That's when we get hooked in and it's not serving our higher purpose or the purpose collectively that's higher. Okay, now I have unmuted you, Janet.
Yes.
Did you add something, or do you have another question?
I have a question for my personal question. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So I've just recently found myself single again, which generally in my life means that there's going to be some big upheaval and I'm on to do something else. And I already have plans to like move and look for a new job in the next year or so. So I'm just wondering, from this perspective of how I contribute to the collective whole, some direction for me.
Okay.
So not so much personally, but for how I help the world.
Okay. So your contribution, what do you need to know about your contribution to the world right now?
Yes.
Okay. And Linda, I just wanted to make a note that you'll have to unmute you, because I've tried to unmute you and it's at your end, I think, that okay. There you go. You did it. Perfect. Okay. So we'll start with Janet and then I'll come back to you. Okay. What does Janet need to know? Okay, so we get the card of swords, and the name of the card is force. It's the Ace of Swords. So new beginnings in the realm of ideas and action, because the suit of swords is the suit of air. It has to do with ideas and action. And so I like to think about this card as the pruning card. I always think of because I'm a gardener, I like nature. I think about pruning bushes. I think about pruning rose bushes or fruit trees. One has to do pruning in order to have good growth, cutting away the old, the dead, the disease, the crossing branches, to allow light and life and air to circulate into the heart of the plant, to rejuvenate it, to support it in its absolute best fruition. And so this is the card that we've chosen for what you need to know right now about your contribution to the world. And so what this speaks of to me is this idea of the extraneous in your life. It's time to cut away those things that no longer serve you. All those bits, those cross, dead, disease, dragging, anything that's cutting your life force down, that's reducing your capacity to be serving from your best. And that could be beliefs, that can be ideas, it can be anything. But this idea of going through both personal, three-dimensional effects, but because this is the suit of air, also going through your mind, going through your ideas, going through the stories that you tell yourself, and getting rid of the ones that no longer serve you, that no longer support you in what your heart is calling you towards. I think it's also helpful to remember that our highest enthusiasm is our spirit calling us forward. So it's really healthy and supportive in terms of our highest contribution, what we're here to give, to remember that what excites us is what we're here to share in and give back. So when we're excited about something and we're inspired about something and we don't even know why, we just are, it's important to just give over to that exploration, because that will lead us in the direction of our heart's greatest enthusiasm, which is our higher, wiser spirit part telling us that we're on our path. We're doing what we're being called onward. And so as you're doing your pruning, so to speak, in your life right now, so that you're getting ready, and there's an expression one of my teachers uses, which is you're getting ready to be ready. That's what this card is about. That's what that card of craftsmanship that we saw at the beginning is about. This is getting ready to be ready. You're cleaning things up. You're getting rid of all the old stuff. You're going through your beliefs. You're going through your ideas. You're going through all those things that you thought you would do and thought that you would be, and you're clearing out the old so that you can make room for the new. And then you're setting your intention. Look at this sword. I mean, it's pretty sharp and pretty deliberate. You're pointing this in the direction where you want to go. And you'll be led if you follow your enthusiasm. Does that help?
That's wonderful. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. Okay. Now, Linda, you wanted to ask something or talk about something, or?
I guess I'm trying to figure out exactly how to ask it to. Is I think what's heaviest on my heart is, our older generation who's isolated.
Yes. And
that helpless feeling that I carry every day, as I talk to my mom 3 times a day. I'm sure so many of us, everyone is feeling this, towards the older generation. And, her maybe lack of intense worry has me worried.
Yeah.
But maybe she's just wiser. Anyway, if you had just any words of wisdom with how we can support the older generation now that they're separated from us in more ways than one, and just anything you can add to that, and how I can stop, or redirect my energy as well, rather than just worry.
Right. Okay. So what do we need to know about supporting others, the older generation, in their isolation, and keeping ourselves in a good place? So why don't I pull 2 cards? One for what do we need to know about how we need to be with our elders, and then one for ourselves and worry. Okay. So this is the card of what we need to know for supporting our elders. And this card I think of as, the name is protection, and it's the 10 of Pentacles. I think of it as the card of legacy, the card of intergenerational, the handing down of family stories, the handing down of the blessings of previous generations. This idea that former generations are always invested in the well-being of those that come further down. And what's interesting about this card is, of course, we've asked it around our elders. What do we need to know about supporting our elders? And we have to remember that our elders have a whole lifetime of experience behind them. They're full of wisdom and full of knowledge, and they've come through a lot. They've had their adversities, their moments, and they've come through. And that is a blessing for us, the now generation and generations coming, is sort of this idea of legacy, this idea of bringing that wisdom forth and passing it on to future generations. And so there's something here, Linda, about this connecting not just you with your parents, but the grandchildren connecting with the grandparents. And the sharing of stories, even just something so simple about, asking them stories about their life and hearing the stories of their life. I mean, on the one hand, it could be seen sort of as a way of distracting, just to get them to talk about themselves and talk about where they're from. But when we do that with our children, when we do that with our elders, it grounds us. It grounds us in realizing that we come from a long line. And hearing the stories about our great-grandparents and other relatives, going into those family stories is a very rich gift that anchors our children, the young generation, because then they understand that they come from something, and there's a resilience that comes from those family stories, that understanding that others who came before them, who love them, have been through hardship and have made it through. And so in your relationship with your mother, what the sense that I'm getting is sort of to cultivate this communication with her, to engage her in thinking about family members that have come before and what they lived through and how they did things, and her story of her life, and allowing your children to connect, and getting them in on those stories, like maybe having those mini Zoom meetings where you see each other all on camera and you're plugged in visiting with each other just in virtual rooms, but you see each other, and giving them an opportunity to ask those questions, and maybe even having family gatherings. For instance, maybe you're already doing this, but for instance, in my family, we're having an Easter morning brunch, virtual brunch, where all of the different families are coming together with my folks to just be together, just to be together. And I think that your connection to your mother is awesome, and supporting her, giving her something meaningful to distract herself with, will help her to remember that she's from a long line of people who've been through things and have made it through. And it will support her own resilience and her own capacity to face whatever it is that's in her experience right now, that isolation. But the fact that you're in communication 3 times a day, and I know that you have siblings who are probably also in communication, the other thing is that idea of craftsmanship, that idea of staying engaged, whatever it is that one loves, to stay engaged with what one loves. And so if she has a hobby, or there are things that she likes to do, maybe encourage her to unplug a little bit from the media if she's spending a lot of time there, and to focus on her craft or her thing that she likes to do, and to share it then, again, as part of this amazing technology that we have, to share what she's doing, to share what she's making, to give a different focus to life other than just the news. Because for anybody who's plugged into that, it is overwhelming and dominant. And it's really important. And I don't think that's healthy, because it's pulling us out of our now. It's pulling us out of our capacity to respond to our lives in the right now. So I hope there's been some ideas there that are supportive of you in terms of your mother, and helping her to have a more resilient outlook, to give her attention to things that are meaningful and satisfying and inspiring to her. You know, and this idea even of it recruiting her to tell the family stories and to share in the family stories and to have the laughs together about those stories. You know, get her to talk about when you were little and your sisters were little, and what was happening in your lives, so your girls can hear that. And it brings families together. Family stories bring us together. We have greater understanding about ourselves and where we come from when we share those stories. So that's the energy that I'm getting with this card. Does that feel helpful and complete, Linda? Oh, you have to unmute yourself.
Yes, that's really beautiful. I feel like you've just refocused my energy on my mom, because it's more my worry than her
Hers.
worry. And she is on her own. We're trying to come up with things together. But the whole story idea is just beautiful, and learning about each other and the wisdom that's come before us. And she's so full of wisdom, and just hearing that right now, I think that'd be beautiful for her and our whole family. So thank you. That's a beautiful new idea.
Good, good.
Love it. Love it.
That's helpful. Good. Okay, and now what do we need to know about our own anxiety when we're dealing with those around us, our elders, those we love? It's balance. So for those of us who are supporting others, you know, finding those tools that help us to stay in this beautiful state of balance, so that we can be, again, resilient and resourceful. And this comes from us tuning into ourselves, tapping into that wisdom that is around us always, whether that's prayer, whether that's meditation, going for a walk when, you know, it's interrupting the pattern. When we start to get to a place where we're not as resilient or as hopeful or as positive as we'd like to be, just recognizing that, being kind with ourselves, and then reframing it, finding a pattern interrupt, something to move us in the new direction. So again, going for a walk or saying some prayers or whatever it is. But in terms of supporting others, you know, if our cup is empty, we know this as parents. When our cup is empty, we have nothing to give our children. And so if we're in positions where we're the emotional support for others, or we've appointed ourselves as emotional support for others, it's important to stay present to this idea that we need to be balanced. We need to be in that state. And it's not to say we're not going to melt down. It's not to say that we're not going to have hard days, but just to be kind with ourselves and to realize that, you know, we have to take care of us before we can take care of anybody else. Does that help? Linda? You have to unmute yourself.
Wait, try it again. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yes.
Right. Okay. No, beautiful. Beautiful. I love the idea of reframing and yeah, just taking care of ourselves a little bit more as we're frantically trying to help others, or as we think is helping others. So,
well, you know, sometimes it's helpful to remember that we can't worry enough to change anything. Like, you know, so being in that place of expending all this energy, spinning ourselves out, doesn't serve. And when we do that, or we go there, again, just bringing this, again, the power of the present moment, just being aware that we're doing it and going, oh, look at that. I'm spinning myself out again. And what can I do to shift from this spun out space to a more resilient perspective? Because we can't worry enough to change anything. So finding a new way around with that. And, you know, I just want to offer here too that Brad Yates is an amazing practitioner of emotional freedom technique. And emotional freedom technique, for those who aren't familiar, is a powerful tool for dealing with just that kind of stuck emotional state. So that state of worry, and using the tapping process where you're tapping on meridian points in the body, and it just helps to shift stuck emotional state or persistent emotional state to one that's softer and more resilient and kinder. And over time, you just get to a different place altogether, which is phenomenal. It's a phenomenal tool for transformation. And he has a wonderful YouTube channel, Brad Yates, Yates. And he has hundreds and hundreds of tapping rounds on different topics, and they're short, they're like 8 minutes long. But I find that as a tool for moving through when we're not resilient, we're sort of in a place where it's just not helping anybody. These tapping rounds, sometimes what I'll do is I'll choose 3 on a topic that I'm going through. And you know, for instance, worry. And then just tap through his worry videos. And I always feel better at the end. And I often come out of it with a new perspective, which is far more empowering and helpful than just continuing to spin out in that state. So I just want to share that resource with you guys because it's wonderful. It's such a gift that he's given to humanity. That's right there for free on his YouTube channel. So yeah, finding the tools, finding what we need to stay in this state of balance so we can be of service to others from that state of grace and you know, and self-care is part of that. We have to take care of ourselves so we can be that channel for light for everybody else. Okay. Do we have any questions about this or any questions about anything else? Okay, so if everyone is complete, I'll just close with a prayer and we will call it a reading. Thank you, Creator, for this opportunity to be here with your children, clarifying where we stand so that we can be stronger, healthier, more resilient in this time of change, understanding how much that we as individuals are affecting the collective, that where we put our attention and our energy is really important, and that we get to choose where that is. Remind us of those places where you want us to put our energy so that we can be the most effective and resilient and resourceful and helpful in crafting the world that we really want to see happen in our hearts, that we collectively want to see. Be with each of us as we walk through these strange times. Be with us when we have our low moments, and celebrate with us when we're having our high moments. Help us to share your love and your light throughout the world. We thank you for this opportunity to be of service. This reading is at an end. Blessings on each and every one of the participants today, now, and those in the future. May we do good work together. Love and light.